earlier this week, we shared a story with you coming from Rolling Stone magazine, indicating that Alex Jones has been spying on not only his ex-wife, but also his current wife. We know about this because of the fact that his lawyers accidentally sent over the entire digital copy of his cell phone to the plaintiff's attorney representing a family that has been victimized by his on-air defamation in relation to the mass shooting in Sandy Hook. Now, I wanted to get a little more clarity about what women in his life have gone through, including his ex-wife. And joining us today is his ex-wife, Kelly Jones. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on and for talking to me.
Our pleasure. I wanted to kind of start off with giving you an opportunity to just share your overall, experience with Alex, how long you guys were married, what he was like in the beginning of the marriage, and what transpired throughout that kind of persuaded you it was time to file for divorce in 2014.
Well, I've actually first filed for divorce in 2004. I met Alex in a really tough time in my life. I'd moved back to Austin because my best friend in the world was in hospice and was dying of complications related to AIDS. And so I met him when I was very vulnerable. I had left a job with a big nonprofit to come back to Austin to be here. And I met him actually at Access TV, where I had a show with this same producer. And so he is a skilled manipulator and narcissist. And so it was pretty fast in getting into a pretty close relationship with him. And, I will say the red flags were there, but I was young and I should have known better, but I just ignored them. And I had this adoring guy, who was very different, like a very, very different looking and completely, I think, very different in many ways person. And so I got pregnant and I didn't see that I had a way out. And something happened prior to that was really tragic. And so he had already convinced me to move in with him and to get isolated from all of my friends and family. And so I didn't see a way out. And I think the thing that he's spinning in the Sandy Hook cases, and a lot of the reason why I speak out is because Alex was a nobody. He had no money. He was an unknown. He had some very minor Austin following on what was kind of like our YouTube type channel, like the Access TV. And so because my background was in publicity and PR and working for PETA of all things, I helped him get off the ground. And I publicized him. I produced a show in the very early years. And then by the time our second, and that was honestly under a lot of, I feel like it was in many cases like coerced or forced labor, because I was you can imagine what it's like. I mean, I don't like to go into too much detail because it's hard to think about, but every kind of abuse that there is, mostly severe gaslighting, but physical and other abuse. And so 2004, it was related to my child who'd gotten pneumonia and he wouldn't let me get her care. And that's when I first filed for divorce. And then over the next few years of time, and between like 2004 and 2011, I tried to leave over and over again. We had another beautiful child that was born. And he convinced me, I think what he did is he put liability onto me basically, but he wouldn't have had what he had if I hadn't been there. And so I was in what I didn't know were undisclosed, like attorney negotiations that are not authorized. And during that time, he and his parents, that you're hearing a lot about David Jones and the Sandy Hook case, and maybe in Connecticut, the combined cases. During that time, he and his parents and my own attorney conspired to create these supplement corporations that I was like, nobody needs that much money. Like, nobody needs money like that at all, except if you're going to use it to change the world and to help other people and to, really affect change in politics in ways that you can with that kind of money, or in government. Anyhow, right. So I'll abbreviate it. So, they formed these corporations, and during our divorce, I lost everything. And then Alex has been subsequently suing me for a decade. And his attorneys, I have a hearing on Monday. It's a motion to unseal, because what people don't know about Alex Jones is under the seal that they put on the case to hide their bad acts, you know? So that's about it. I mean, that's not it. It's never stopped, in court, out of court. I had a hidden camera pointed into my property. His PIs will follow me in a way that I know that they're following me, to where, like, if I turn onto a road and make another turn, they obviously want me to know that. I've had a drone twice in my window. I've had a helicopter over my house in close proximity airspace. And I've had people, you know, that are his fans show up at my gate because my address has been made public, I believe, by him and his counsel. And I've had people stop their car and wait until the gate opens and, like, take a photo of me so they know that they're doing it. So, yeah.
Jesus Christ. If you don't mind, you know, you just quickly referenced the issue with supplements. And I'm curious, how was the whole supplement deal communicated with you? What were you told, and what was, you know, what was told to you to, like, sell that whole idea to you?
Well, that's an interesting question that people don't often ask, Anna. Thank you. So, while I was very clearly already trying to separate from Alex, he comes to me and he's like, he told me that his dad had some physical problem that I won't say in case it's a HIPAA violation, and that he wanted him to come work as a manager, and then he wanted to start selling supplements. And I was already very checked out and just trying to get out. And I was like, no way, no how. Like, nobody needs that. Like, nobody needs to profit like that off of this, whatever. And so subsequently, I found out about those PQPR related entities in our divorce, because suddenly all this money was being transferred to these corporations, and they were disclosed, sort of, I think not in their entirety. And so that's when I really became first aware of it. And David Jones, in his sworn testimony, admits that I didn't want them formed and that they formed them secretly. And it was only until this year, when the Sandy Hook plaintiffs in the Travis County, Texas cases filed their, what's called, I guess it's a TUFTA violation, a Texas Uniform Fraudulent Transfers Act petition alleging, you know, fraudulent transfers. It was only in this year that I learned that that's what that was. And the reason why everything was so inequitable and why he kept suing me is because it was completely like a legal simulation and in complete star chamber secrecy, and a secret private judge. And I wasn't even noticed of hearings. I was actually forced out of the state of Texas under threat while my businesses were being valued. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to, you know, sell them off and shut them down, right? Like, make it stop. And then subsequently, when I wanted to do that again, that was one of the reasons why Alex actually sued me, right? Unplug InfoWars was my hashtag. So he did not enjoy that, and he did not enjoy my free speech at all. And he's not. The one thing I would say about, really quick, if I can, or I can take another question, whatever you prefer. Like, Alex sells himself as the First Amendment at his best, and he's this great censorship victim. And all these donations coming in are funding litigation to actively oppress and infringe my First Amendment, and to assure that the presumption of openness, which is a First Amendment guarantee, not for me, but for the public and the media and for the legal community, to make sure that that right is summarily infringed upon. And that is a very high bar to make, to seal a hearing. And that happened on Monday.
Okay. So, Kelly, I think a lot of people wonder, is it an act with Alex Jones, or is he really that unhinged? And so that also relates to the question or the topic you were just talking about, which is, you know, he sells all these supplements, and does he behind the scenes think, oh yeah, men are insecure about, you know, X, Y, and Z, and so I'll just sell them snake oil on that and make a lot of money? Or does he actually really believe the frogs are gay and we've lost testosterone and you? So is he crazy, or is he fake?
Well, thanks for asking, Cenk. That's a central con to my divorce that's been reiterated through media. So his attorneys argued that he was a performance actor like Batman. And they did that to keep all the footage of InfoWars coming before the jury, saying that, oh, he's not like that at all. So we've had the Sandy Hook case, the Heslin Lewis case in Travis County that just concluded. And in that case, he had multiple witnesses that testified. Of course, he's the same. And Alex himself has admitted it. But in person, as a human being, he is more unhinged and weirder and terrifying and threatening and looming and raging, I would say, than on screen. And he's modified on screen. And you can see this, Cenk and Anna, when he says, oh, I have to go off the air right now, because he's going back into like the real person, right? The real rage is coming out. And it's so extreme that his staff, you can tell, is like, you need to go off, right? So no, Alex is, and this is the thing, you know, it's hard to talk about my ex-husband because he's the father of my children. I have one minor child and all of her media is blocked, so she can't see any of this, thank God. And she's been safe with me because she's a brave and courageous person who at 12 years old stood up to Alex Jones as nobody does or has and said, I don't want to live here anymore. And she got the help she needed for her physical disability, and she's doing a lot better, but he's still harassing her. So I kind of went on a rabbit trail there, but yes, he's every bit strange. Here's the thing: I blame his attorneys, right? So if I look at him as somebody that's the kind of crazy like Charles Manson, or like somebody that really needs to be institutionalized, because he does. And he is a mentally ill, dangerous kind of mentally ill person, and his behaviors are abhorrent. But there are officers of the Texas court and officers of the court right now that are profiting off of him in the Sandy Hook, Connecticut case, who have a duty to protect Alex Jones from himself, and specifically us from him. And so what they've done instead is they've enacted again these corporate crimes, which I'm about to file some stuff, and hopefully the case will be open. I hope everybody will come on Monday and watch on YouTube this motion to unseal. But they conducted this massive corporate crime under this family law smokescreen. So everybody thinks, oh, women scorn, you know, oh, he said, she said, dirty laundry, we don't want to touch it. But that's really where the meat of the story lies. And those attorneys, let's blame the attorneys. I think the Sandy Hook plaintiffs should go after them, because they're the people that, outside the rule of law and due process, in complete and rote violation of the rules of procedure and evidence, have fabricated and manipulated the legal process with crony judges in secrecy to accomplish things that no one can illegally. And they're actively, like I posted online today, they're involved in active theft of my property. And how did Alex Jones get from there to the Capitol steps? How did Roger Stone have a platform to go on for Donald Trump to campaign on? And how did the caravan cross the country with Ollie Alexander, or like parallel that? And I blame that entirely. I could have stopped him, and the people that I spoke to before could have stopped him, and I'm still going to do everything I can to stop him.
You know, the one, I guess, final question I have for you is, you know, when you're talking about the judges, you're talking about your specific experience, you know, going through divorce proceedings with him, you know, hashing out what happens to whatever assets you have. I think that the judge in the at least the first trial that we saw and has concluded with the Sandy Hook family in Texas was actually fantastic and incredibly patient given all the drama. But just going back to your personal experiences, I do want to just quickly ask you about the fact that he tried to file for bankruptcy, and that's a common tactic that a lot of corporations engage in order to essentially protect their assets from, you know, damages that they might have to pay because of any type of laws they might have broken or any lawsuits they might be facing. And so I want to understand what he's like financially, right? So I don't believe for a second that a man who's made literally hundreds of millions of dollars in a few short years off of selling supplements alone is somehow now magically broke. And so are you privy to any type of schemes that he might have engaged in while you guys were married to hide assets?
Yes, yes. There's two hidden assets that I've recently found. One was disclosed during the Sandy Hook Heslin Lewis case in Travis County, and it was valued and highly valued, I believe. And guess who's representing it? Punchline, his family law attorneys. Like, that's my undivided community property in the state of Texas. So they're paying their fees from my undivided assets, which is really shocking and a huge conflict of interest. And money is a weapon. It's a Machiavellian tool, right? And so when you see all these dilatory, as they say in the legal world, tactics to file for bankruptcy or to make inspection responses never fully comply with discovery, and meanwhile, apparently he's been on air this week saying, I don't care. I'll just keep suing him and appeal. I don't care. I'm never going to lose, because he's got this he's just rolling in it. And he does that. He loves it. He flies around in jets. He has mansions upon mansion. He just sold a house that I think he bought for over $4 million, probably at a profit of $5 million. He's got land. He's got Rolexes. He's got, and you know what? You know what else he's got, Anna? And Anna, I want to keep on calling you Anna because your name is so pretty on the screen.
It's
but
okay.
Anna, he's got a little girl here who just started her freshman year in high school, who he won't even pay his part for her orthodontics, and he won't pay his part of what's years past due on his other child's orthodontics. He's got a child here that's got a voice like Aretha and Aguilar, and he won't pay for voice lessons, and she's in musical theater advanced for her age. He's got a daughter here who loves him despite everything that he's done to her, and he still won't let her have any relationship with her half sister, who he sends her pictures of over and over again, while he's telling her the only way he'll pay for maybe some art supplies or some basic things or a school credit that she can get as a future health professional, the only way that he's going to pay for that is if she sees him. And that's a coercive mechanism, because he's trying to use money as a lure. And that little girl, that young woman, I should say, because she's not a little girl anymore, she is strong, and she is not motivated by those things. And it's a real, that I think that's the story, right, y'all? Like, there's this guy selling that he's this big family guy, and just the other day he was on while the Sandy Hook, Connecticut case was airing, saying, "Oh, I'm old. My 3 kids are grown up." No, he isn't. No, they aren't. He's got a kid that just turned 14 and is in high school, just started high school. He's got a kid that he's got a Netflix account, and he won't even put her name on it. He's got that kind of love for money and that kind of abusive love of it.
Yeah. All right. Kelly Jones, ex-wife of Alex Jones, with a lot of interesting information and perhaps some information that others in the legal community might want to talk to you about as well. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks. We really appreciate it.
I'm so truly grateful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.